Yeah, I think it's time for a check-in. It's been about a year since my previous and first Deadlock video, whereupon I expressed great interest in the game, its setting, its development, and offered some quick feedback off the top of my head. Since then, I basically did not play it at all. A few days after I published that video, I decided, okay, that was neat. I'm sure I'll return to the game when it's officially launched or something, it'll be there when I get back, and went on to do other stuff. Winter event? Nah. Holiday, Viper, Sinclair, and Calico? Nah. Map rework? Nah. Shop rework? Ooh. Nah. And now I'm in the same boat as everyone else, where they dropped a cute vampire girl, and now suddenly I'm putting in 40 hours a week. Okay, that's oversimplifying it a tad. What I'm tentatively calling the Hideout update seems to be a big public milestone for the game's presentation in a lot of ways, and makes for a very convenient re-jumping on point for examining all of the game's many changes since I first got a hold of an invite, with the 6 new, fully realised characters as a sort of carrot on a string. So today, I will be combing over all of the major updates I can think of, re-examining my feedback from last time, quickly commenting on the new content, and rejigging some of my analysis, thoughts, and impressions expressed in video number 1. The February 25th one, not the new visual update. After experimenting with the 4-lane layout, eventually Valve went ahead and smushed central New York's middle 2 lanes into one single blue lane, finally turning the main mode into the standard 3-lane layout. There wasn't anything particularly wrong with the 4-lane approach, but this does help with some innocuous things, and it's probably better for the long run. For one, this means that now all 6 members of the team are paired with a duo, when previously the outside lanes had you running solo. Matches don't have any sort of pre-planning phase and are on an immediate rolling start, assigning lanes at random, and I imagine this would cause some problems for heroes that worked better in duos. It wasn't a huge problem at the time, since even the most support-coded heroes in the game at the time weren't particularly weak in solo, and had perfectly functional damage builds and utility for holding their own, and could simply dial it back to a support-oriented build after the laning phase. But nowadays, with the more, shall we say, focused approach that needs the early item choices to be more careful, and now with Paige, who is much more support-oriented, having a guaranteed partner washes away some of that worry. It also simplifies lane macro, with one less lane to push and defend, reducing the amount of plates you need to spend to stay ahead, and with one less Guardian and Walker to get for your item slots. It cleans up some of the map clutter, adds some more free space to use for camps and map elements, roaming is a lot more committal, lanes are way less susceptible to invasions now that there's much more travel time. Even the teleporters from the left side to the right side got erased. Sad to see them go, but I'm sure I've subconsciously appreciated the reduced random invasions and rotations as a result. It makes it even more awkward that there's only 2 shrines now that there's an odd number of lanes, but we'll get to that. But by and large, the base area is a bit better too. Even at this point, they still don't seem to know what they want this place to look like. So we're going to be looking at a big grey box basin for a while longer, but it's functionally better. The 3 lanes also helps make the layout more colour agnostic. They still go by colours for their names, but now you can very easily just call them left lane, middle lane, and right lane as your perception allows. There is a quirk about this though. The big boy neutral objective you try and snag when the enemy team is down to boost your pushes, well, for one, it's still just called mid-boss, so all the callouts call the mid-boss arena mid, and the future of blue being called mid lane is going to hinge on how much longer the denizens have to wait until they get properly fleshed out. The second is that it's right now underneath blue lane, meaning the mid-boss map icon swallows this central area of the map. This makes it tough to ping the center of the lane by itself without accidentally suggesting an early suicide jungle rush, and perhaps more importantly, creates this blind spot that Mirage cannot target with his ult at all. The icon just blocks any attempt at clicking on dudes close to it. Anyway, there is an argument to be made that 4 lanes made the game more unique, but I think it's already plenty unique in so many other ways, and the number of lanes is really just a means to an end. Dawnggate didn't get any extra stripes just for having 2. Rest in peace. The shop rework update included multiple major changes to the game's itemization in general, and not just the UI, but we'll start there. The shop looks like this now. This was definitely still a lot to take in at first, but it is miles better than the old shop. Items now have much better, more distinct art, and are now laid out in this catalogue that separates them by standardized prices. It might still be a bit of a homogenized gouache when trying to glance through the inventories, but it is definitely way better, and I've gotten used to it. Now the big things. Prior to this update, as you might recall, your inventory was split into 4 categories of 4 slots. First 3 could only be filled with weapon, health, and spirit upgrades respectively, and the 4th could be used on any but needed unlocking over the course of the match. This made for a whopping 16 item slots total. In theory, the 4th split gave you leeway to make more generalist builds. If you're a big glass cannon gunner or something, you might as well take a few extra durability or spirit items, or else the slots were going to waste. But it also put a cap on items from a particular category, so you couldn't go overboard on one kind of item. Now all slots are flex slots, and you only get 12 max, starting at 8 and working up as you take objectives. As part of how the system compensated for this, many more of the game's items now upgrade into higher tiers when they didn't before, at a discount so its total price now matches the standardized price brackets. And many more items were added at this time. Well, for one, certainly cuts down on UI clutter, and there's a lot less stuff you had to look at and think about when going over everyone's builds and stuff. I think at first I was concerned, but now if you're like a core damage character or something, now you have to commit to a specialist build or make some tough cuts to fit in items from other categories, when before, if you were, say, a character that liked building bullet items, you could have had up to 8 late game and then have guaranteed 4 slots for spirit and health you could use to take clutch defensive items. But now you could technically have 12 items from the same category if you, like, really need it. The categories don't act as an inorganic barrier to builds now. Not everyone is bound or encouraged by the system to have a generalist build. And perhaps more importantly, Haze and 7 aren't always going to have Unstoppable unless they have to make some very tough choices. This does mean that build decisions have more choices and more impact, and slot opportunity cost is a much bigger consideration now. This also means you can't just fill everything with 800 soul laning items for an early power spike. I think that happened a lot back in the day, and now doing that is a lot more carefully considered. This does mean some of the more esoteric items are being left on the wayside now that you can't have 16 of them, and you need to make your choices more carefully. Make no mistake, 12 slots is still a bloody lot. This type of game usually only has 6, and even Dota 2 only has those, the neutral item slot, and the free backpack slots where items can be kept but not used. Even if you count those and the T pre-scroll slot, since, you know, that used to be an item you held in your bag, that's only 11 and on a very stretched technicality. And you don't even have to buy boots in this game, so take that. Many of the items added after this are very appreciated upgrades to some of the previous mainstays, and we saw a lot of new staples come in too. For 3600 souls, you can buy an item that lets you parry spells. Oh my goodness. Every 20 seconds, you can get a defensive out from any ability that you see is about to hit you by pressing F, and it will absorb the effect completely. It won't stun the attacker like parrying a melee hit does, but simply blocking a Lash or Infernus ult or something is so good. This was also the patch that did away with weapon damage shields and spirit damage shields. That is to say, some of the old items, instead of percentage-based resist from physical or magical, instead gave you a sort of max health increase that only soaked damage from that particular type. That's why in the old footage, some characters have orange or purple pips above their health. It was odd that this wasn't any kind of unique item passive. This was literally a basic stat that could be on any old item, same as resistances or damage or whatever. And from what I've heard, these aspected shields ignored your own resistance values and always took weapon or spirit damage at full value, making them practically irrelevant in the late game. I think it was intended to be a valid choice you could make while you were still in the game's early stages, but considering how incidental the stat was, it never felt like an intentional choice to take over one of the proper resistances. And in the end, the stat was removed. Those items now give resist of their specific type, and all forms of shielding are now universal barriers. Is that everything? Okay, cool. Just think, that might be the same horn from Rocket Jump Waltz. It's almost certainly not, but it's nice to dream. The Hideout update, so called for the new Hideout hub area in place of the main menu, is such a huge step up for the game's presentation in so many ways before we even get to the 6 heroes. So, first of all, I just want to say, I can't quite remember when it was added, but for some time the game had changed the character model shaders to this kind of cheap-looking toon shader thing, which I didn't know how I felt about it. But with this and the new designs, they've proven that they're starting to hone in on a more specific style now, and that's starting to come off a lot better. They're really tapping into the comic book occult noir thing. You know, like Fables and Hellboy? Is that anything? Is that correct? Popping of colour, but under a veneer of desaturation and with distinct shadows. Kind of like a more extreme version of that other game they made. Anyway, The new characters really lean into this look, and a few old heroes got the designs iterated with new, more lively assets. The character select looks great, the hideout is chock full of little details. This cat is hanging around with a bunch of extra behaviors and Easter eggs they put on her just because. Man, this place has such a warm atmosphere. Walking around here as pairs kind of reminds me of something. I don't know how I feel about games that drop you straight into this kind of semi-gameplay, even into a safe hub like this. I figured people would want to see an options menu first in case they need it, but I can't deny the gripping charm. The visual updates extend to the map as well, with one of the side lanes having a makeover that modeled it into this industrial port-like area. All in all, while this game is still far from like a shippable state, this was a big milestone that made the game look and feel way more finished than it was before. But that is only one part of the reason why this was the update that padded the numbers. And indeed, I might as well comment on all of the new heroes in release order, seeing as that they were a big part of the newfound popularity. Starting with you love 'em, you know 'em. Okay, we're starting with these guys first though. I'm skipping Mirage and Calico for levity, and I feel like I'm not going to have much to say about the two characters who aren't even sporting proper models yet. Like, come on, look at this. I feel like I shouldn't even be playing them. It is kind of funny though that Valve's developmental priorities are such that there are already so many characters waiting on redesigns and new models, some with concepts ready to go, and they're just going to have to look like this for years. Oh, but don't worry, they have a fully realized personality, fully written dialogue, and their voice lines have all been casted, recorded, and edited no problem, even though Sinclair needs 2 different voice actors. And I've got to say, only Valve can make a playable character that is a composite duo hero of a married couple, but they actually hate each other now, and their ultimate goal is to get a hold of the Spirit divorce papers. Anyway, I don't know, stealing ults is cool I guess. He's no Rubik, but it does lead to some funny stuff with the two characters we'll see later, wink wink. So my infinite ammo while sliding feedback from the last video is taking a little hit, now that there's a character who is innately built around that one feature. And look, I'm not going to tell you what you aren't already hearing from everyone else. Her voice and personality are amazing, and she is done so dirty by a model just being something scooped off the Neon Prime cutting room floor and painted green. If you're not planning on playing this game and haven't done so already, go look up all of her voice lines, you won't be disappointed. This is also punctuated by the fact that I am programmed to find American place names amusing, and have a pleasant chuckle every time she says Milwaukee or something. I ran a full headshot build in her once, and that told me the value of hitting the head in general. Interesting that she, of all characters, seems to have the most forward planning for her story in terms of an in-game implementation after Geist and Ivy. Like, apparently she has voice lines that are set aside to play after story events, much like the Oathkeeper stuff for Lady Geist. That's all I got. Okay, now we can talk about the 6 new guys. And we are starting on a doozy. It was very telling that they announced the thing where you vote for the upcoming heroes and then decided not to bother putting her on the ballot and just released her immediately. Like, yeah, we all know she's going first, let's just skip that step real quick. Mina is probably single-handedly responsible for most of the game's player base spike after the update. Now, why is she so popular? Well, I've got a couple of ideas. What am I doing? There we go. Okay, but for real though, even across all Valve games in general, Mina is probably the only lady they've got who really fits this exact young-ish, cute beauty, stylish femme archetype. The fact that she's bratty and ambiguous moral fiber on account of the whole rich vampire thing really casts a wide net over the mainstream audience. It's funny then that the Deadlock team made her hard to play and bad. She has the appearance of a glass cannon caster type, her kit pushes you into gun builds, but you really have to play her like an evasive melee skirmisher. She has been buffed as of a recent patch, but her rock bottom win rate can only be slightly blamed on a high casual pick rate from players who found an invite and came over exclusively to play her. Her kit is designed a little antithetically, and I'm surprised at how conditional her self-healing is. She's a vampire, and the only self-healing innate to her kit requires her rake spell to get a killing blow. I guess she is only a recent convert, so she's still learning the whole bloodsucking thing. She's really good at farming actually, but she needs to hit players to get her stacks up, so whatever. On the flip side, knowing her weaknesses makes her pretty fun to lane against when you're going knowing how to exploit them. Constantly ducking for cover to avoid love bite buildup and getting an early slowing hex to completely shut down her escape. Teach them to position properly the hard way, you know? The GOAT! The GOAT! Wait, this guy was the first winner of the ballot? And by a huge margin? Did the furry community do this? You don't have to vote for the guy just because he's got a goat head. He's not even full Anthro. Anyway, building mechanics wise is another exploration of the melee focused tank archetype in this game, which is in a weird spot because of the whole everyone's got guns and can parry thing. It's certainly a lot easier to hit a swing when you're masking the animation with this whole knockout combo he does, and he certainly feels more dynamic than Abrams. It's got a lot of people questioning why taking one all when Billy is on the table, who seems to be an equally solid initiator if not better. It's not for me to say, but him existing means they can get more data on this archetype, so that's nice. I think his punk aesthetic is anachronistic by at least a couple decades, but I don't think anyone really cares. Also, funny reload animation. And to some people, this was the main event of the update. A mysterious elder god / plane traveler masquerading as a bellhop for a mystical hotel. If Mina is popular with the general mainstream, Doorman is a hit with Valve's core audience as the new resident Tumblr sexy man. Honestly, I could just play a clip like this and have this kit speak for itself. Not only does this character have access to portals as if Valve made the Portal games or something, but another hit factor of his kit is his ultimate, which temporarily removes you from combat by sending you straight to the Baroness Hotel, a winding hellscape not unlike those TF2 Halloween maps that send you to those haunted areas that slowly kill you. Funny component of which is that this place is just a section of the map that exists under the main area. I'm told there's some console text that implies it's supposed to be generated from random prefabs eventually in order to make it even harder to navigate across different matches. In addition to being endlessly creative with infinite potential, it is to be commended how effortlessly his spells combine and synergize despite how different they are. He can use his portals to roam or jump between lanes and camps, and use the call bell to flash farm. He can use the portals to get into position, send the enemy away on a luggage cart, and throw the call bell to the destination to get a guaranteed hit. You can send them to the hotel, wait for them to come back, upon which you can instantly push them via cart through a door to somewhere they really don't want to be, and throw a bell at them for good measure. His reputation precedes him, and is a great pick if you're feeling a little creative and are willing to, and I mean this in a totally unironic sense, hold the door open for people. Paige. Probably the game's first actual hard support character, if only because I don't have the violence in me to play Gunpage. It's a good thing they did the map update before this character because I think Paige would genuinely struggle as a solo laner. To hammer the point home, her basic attack is this slow moving Paige thing that can't headshot, and it's tough to contest souls with. Kinda comfy picking her up and going trophy hunter and then just running around the map getting assists and shielding people. I am the fastest nerd in New York. Drifter is an old world vampire full of mystery and danger, and he loses all aura the moment he hits left click. Marvel Rivals have made me a little tired of the idea of people having to reload their hands. Like, I get it's to give downtime that incentivizes people to make their shots carefully, but like, come on, what are we doing here?
You cannot kill me!
So, I pitched a few votes for this guy, thinking, oh yeah, everyone loves a sad boy, let's get him in here. If I had only known the crimes that were going to be unleashed. His free revive incentivizing him to just face roll and get everyone to overcommit is a frustrating idea at first, but if anything it just motivates me to get more games to try itemizing against him. They buffed Decay for a reason. Also, do not tell Victor players that Refresher works on his ult. Or do, and make him save up and burn a 6400 soul opportunity cost instead of a core durability item just so he can die 3 times. Your call. With all of them out of the way, the next stage of my reassessment of Deadlock is to revisit some of my old feedback points and look at if and how they were addressed in the current version, because a lot has changed and some of those did get affected in the jumble.
Improved audio-visual feedback for parries.
Yes, on all accounts, it is now way more obvious what exactly is happening when you both get a parry and when you get parried. I think the audio component could be a mite louder, but it does the job perfectly.
Item flavor and readability.
Yep, I took care of that. The new background keeps everything distinct. They haven't changed the stat readouts that much, so it might just be me getting used to it, but what an item actually does for you feels a bit easier to notice than it did before. Except for one thing. Here's an item that the stat reader only shows as having an active component, so it gives you no stats, right? It actually gives you up to 25 spirit power flat depending on when you buy it because of this widget here. This is a system that Deadlock calls investment. At the bottom left, and whenever you hover over someone's build, there are these 3 bars, one for each item category. In addition to showing you how much they're putting into a certain item type, this also shows you how far along you are in the investment of a particular stat. Each item of a particular colour adds progress to this bar equal to its soul cost, and each threshold increases your weapon damage, max health, and spirit power. This mechanic seems to be in aid of creating a safety net for itemization. If you're buying a bunch of items with esoteric passes and actives, you are still rewarded with raw stats that make it easier for you to play the game, but also the thresholds aren't linear. They're much closer together in the early tiers and gain more diminishing returns the more investments you make. If I had to guess, this allows Valve to control a sort of stats curve in order to make hybrid builds way more viable and specialized builds less out of control. Either way, these bonuses aren't shown anywhere on an item's tooltip. It used to be, but they were partitioned away from the rest of the stat line in such a way that you might not even notice it was there. Now it's even worse. Hovering over an item in the shop pops up the detailed investment stats and just sort of hopes you notice it's there, despite the fact that it's not even fully tutorialized, and it's all the way across the other side of the screen. Your exact final stats by the numbers are pretty out of mind considering how much you have to do to even see them, so most people might not even notice that this is like a feature. If they could add the investment bonus straight into the stats readout as investment bonus plus N spirit power or something, that could work. There's also just axing the investment system altogether and giving the items a standardized damage, health and spirit increase based on their price point, but I do want to see if there's any data as to how much the investment system really changes build diversity by doing all this. Though there is a slightly awkward interaction of all items that start from one category and then have upgrades that turn them into another. This is really only a thing for like Kinetic Dash and Arcane Surge, I think, which all build out of extra stamina, and it is funny that doing so removes any health upgrades from the former, making them not total upgrades. I'll leave it to Valve to figure out how they feel about that kind of interaction though.
Safe lane / off lane map bias.
After they mushed the middle two lanes into one, the middle section of the map is now completely symmetrical, making this point null. But for the side lanes, it's still the case that the Sapphire and Amber sides don't have access to the same space and strategic resources as their opponents. For a while, I figured that while this is the case, it didn't seem to make much of a difference. But I have since watched a video that let me know I was sort of onto something, but not in exactly the way I thought. If anything, the free small camp is a consolation. On either side of this bridge in the middle, the side of the medium camp has way more space to work with, including more angles that the team can work from to harass the opponent. This has led to pro play coining the terms weak lane and strong lane depending on who is on what side. It seems to affect things, but not enough to have to enforce a draft on casual play, especially now that there's a pair assigned to every lane.
Potential issues with infinite MOL sliding.
So this feature is very much still in the game, and probably will be for the foreseeable future considering there's a hero built around the mechanic now, but they did at least address one of the more boring uses for this mechanic. Namely, they moved the stairs forward in front of the Guardian so it's not in range anymore. Now, that wasn't the only thing I had in mind, I was also thinking of stuff like this. But I think I have much better language for describing what my actual issue with the feature is. It creates this theoretically infinite ceiling for optimization that constantly escapes the mental bandwidth, isn't that impactful, and is exhausting to have to engage with constantly. Like, every team fight, every poke, every interaction you've ever engaged in, you could have done better if you were sliding after all your dashes and shooting your gun for the free bullets. It wouldn't have changed that much, and you just weren't thinking about that because there's so much else going on in any given scenario, but it's free real estate, there's not too much opportunity cost, it's free damage on the table. Like, that kind of level was what I was worried about. Having that on top of absolutely every moment of your gameplay could drive you nuts. But also, I think we'll only ever get full data on that when the game gets like an actual super sweaty competitive $1 million major tier scene that plays the game enough to think about this kind of thing and how they feel about it. It's a really cool on-paper idea that makes you engage with the movement, so I don't want them to be totally discouraged. Maybe the solution could be some sort of middle ground thing where the infinite ammo is on some sort of meter or cooldown that Viper's passive, or maybe some items can remove the limiter on, so players concerned with optimization aren't too distraught about not doing it literally all the time. I don't know.
General UI clutter.
It's better. Again, really more as a result of some of the other elements getting cut down, but there has been a general effort to move some of the widgets to the tab view, including the boon meter. If you don't remember, Deadlock doesn't have experience or levels per se, it rewards you with skill points at certain soul thresholds, and in the old footage there was a big old potion meter hanging off your health bar. Now that's hidden behind the expanded view seen by holding tab. It does mean that boons and when you get them are now completely out of mind for a lot of the game. I imagine for most people, they get their skill points when they get them, and that's that. And since it's tied to the economy anyway, and there's not really any decisions you can make with that information outside of the first few minutes where you're waiting for your ult to become available, sure, I guess that works out, but I think you can improve it by just doing this. Just a little bar next to the souls. It's information that's a lot more relevant to your economy than it is like your health bar, and the big old potion shape just makes it take up a ton of space when a nice thin bar would do nicely. And then you can hover over it like you do now to see the exact number you need. Yeah, sure, it's boring, but I feel like the current implementation is going to waste, and I would definitely think about my boon progress more if I could just see it like this. Other than that, the cleaner UI makes me feel a lot better about the stuff they kept too. I dogged on this thing on the left here. It's a display that shows you which stats are being modified by certain buffs and debuffs, and which value they've been changed to. I'm still not really paying attention to it, but I don't feel like we're in a hurry to make room anymore, and it feels just a bit better implemented than it was before, so sure, it can stay. I also complained about the health bars, and while they're unchanged live, check this out. Ta-da! No, it's not a proper solution in menus or anything, but you can add it as a launch setting and it turns all of the health bars into these much more conventional ones that are the same size and they work great. I'm not sure why they're tucked away like this, and they have been for a while, but these are plenty good for my purposes, so no notes. I don't think I have any additional feedback from that, but I do have some new thoughts. This game's been out for a while now, and it's only in playing this new update and pondering some things that I'm finally able to give proper appreciation for some things. Like, coming from Dota 2, a game where 2-second stuns are the norm, I'm shocked at this game's restraint at applying truly hard CC onto you. Any full stuns and suppression either require the caster to put themselves at risk and shadow the whole time, require precision or other situation-based execution, or are extremely telegraphed. It takes a lot in Deadlock for you to be in a situation where you are still alive, yet are literally not playing the game. Knockups still allow you to fight back, they tuned the sleep status so you can still at least groggily walk around, and they adjusted Wraith's ult to replace the stun with this disarm plus silence status that sucks, but still allows you to properly move so you can keep on the escape. Mo and Krill need to be on top of you and stand still to stun you, Abrams needs a wall and has to run forward into you to drag you there, Dynamo needs to put himself in harm's way with a support inventory to stun the whole team, Viper's ult actually protects you from damage while you're trapped, and Doorman's ult being effectively a stasis is offset by the fact that you have control over what's going on while you're stuck and you have the power to escape early if you're prepared for it. It's just unusually considerate from what I've expected of Ice Frog. Okay, well there's a couple exceptions. The stun you receive when you get knocked off a zipline is crazy long for like no reason. And as much as I love hitting those parries, I actually think the stun on those is just a little too long also. Hitting it in the laning phase almost always results in a kill. It's a 2.75 second stun, during which they take more damage. It's very punishing. And another thing, the fact that there are so many item slots and itemization is balanced to favour adaptability, I have to say that this is the first Hero Sieger type of game that I am really actively engaging with builds on. Now, that might just be because it's early days and we're all still figuring things out collectively, but there is just so much free space in the early game and even after some core items that I can just go, yeah, I'll try this out, see if it works. And that stuff I was saying before about how the game's mechanics create something of a safety net for diverse builds. It's got the good parts of Dota 2 itemization, which is incredibly transformative by giving your character access to powerful actives and effects, and League of Legends itemization, in which most items serve to boost your strengths even further with special passive effects. It definitely takes some time to reach that level of confidence in the item system, but I apply a lot more independent thought to it than I ever did with any game. If I'm playing League, I'm there to play the character, so I'm just going to build what blitz.gg tells me and let my execution do the rest. Deadlock has actually gotten me to be interested in running a particular character just to test builds and build ideas. And it has some new ways to itemize too. I think the big candidates for this discussion are the duration items and the range increasing items. If you're a big utility character and just need to improve your crowd control, you can build specifically for that when in other games your only option is to put more points into it if it's scaled. Now granted, we just covered that there aren't that many hard stuns anymore, but it is nonetheless a fun build to play Dynamo and just pump it all into ult. Get the biggest black holes ever, hit refresher and do it again. But duration and range mean a lot of things. How long a buff lasts for, how far you can apply it, how far apart you can place Doorman's doors. Some abilities run on charges that you can increase with a certain item, even if they're ordinarily only one charge by default, and without having to manage mana, you don't have to worry about resources as part of your builds. You can just hit the fun buttons whenever they're off cooldown. But that leads to my last talking point, which is, some people don't like making these choices. This is the part of the video where I talk about mechanical depth and player attraction. As I explained in the last video, Deadlock is a third-person shooter hero seeker slash MOBA. You can see it with your eyes. That's pretty obvious. In some respects, this makes Deadlock easier to get into, as moving the game from an RTS-like control scheme to a more organic character-centered controller makes some of the concepts come off more naturally. It's a lot easier to understand how a shoot-shoot-bang game works, and seeing everything at ground level like this allows the players to more intimately experience the elements and mechanics. On the other hand, you are now playing Quake and Dota at the same time, having to learn about farming, economy, objectives, and lane macro, and now you've got to apply that at the same time as sliding, wall jumps, map tricks, headshots, and now there's vertical elements at play too. MOBAs have become something of a boogeyman in the mid-core after they all had a friend recommend them as popular League of Legends game that has cool characters, only to get overwhelmed by the odd structure and torn down by the bad community. And some people I know who were even partial to it regardless got to get off by the additional overhead of having to play a shooter game on top of it. Now, that's no reason to ever change the game. The Dota 2 devs have made it very clear they don't intend to compromise on the game's depth for the sake of new players, and that's part of how it retains its particular market niche and appeal as the premier tournament hero sieger. They might indulge in the odd alternative game mode, but Turbo really is just Dota 2 for employed people, and Ability Draft is for a whole new level of freak. Some people just want to pick up a job and left click on dudes, and that's why so many people are playing Marvel Rivals. If you want to experience the world of Deadlock, this main mode and minor variations are going to be your only option now and for the foreseeable future, so you'd better get brave. I'm not holding out hope for some PvE mode that's not just the regular game mode with bots, and has a good ecosystem that makes it worth playing just so I can get more of my friends involved, because there is simply no way that's even on the drawing board, and even I can't imagine what would entail in that game setting. It is still the world of Deadlock that is like 90% of the game's pull. I just would not bother had Valve not concocted this aesthetic. I can't think of any other roster-based game that spins alternate history occult noir like this, and we are getting characters never imagined before. I do mean alternate history. The World Wars never happened, and the Soviet Union still exists, led by Catherine the Great's ghost. Even if you don't intend to play Deadlock ever, for the love of God, find ways to enjoy the characters and story regardless, because this is some real fresh ground here. And it's already spurred so many people into creating something for a kind of game that might never have even given second thought to. One can only imagine who we've got to look forward to in terms of upcoming heroes, but I know who I'm rooting for. In conclusion, Hideout update very good, very excited for more. Thank you for your time.